So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for participating on the training for the Maximos TLML. And I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Martin Lack. I'm the responsible product manager and also team leader in Kistler. And I'm the product manager for the Maximos devices. This session is recorded. And please, to all, stay all unmuted during the session to avoid noises in the background so that we can't hear or understand what I'm saying or what I'm telling here. The recorded webinar will be shared after the session. And if you have during the session some questions, I would suggest that you put all your questions in the chat. And after the session, I will pick out some questions and answer them at the end of this session. And all these questions which are not available or I was not able to answer during the session, I will send out this after the session by email and answer each question. So every answer you will get from me to your question I can do will be possible. So I will start with the presentation and go through the following topics during the next half an hour. I would like to introduce Kistler to you. Then, because the Maximos TLML was developed for the medical area, I'd like to give you some information about FDA and MDR related functions in this new device. I give you some information about the interfaces which are available in the Maximos TL devices and some information about service. Let's start with Kistler itself. Kistler has 60 locations worldwide with 2,200 employees and more than 10,000 active customers. We are working close together with university and R&D partners, and because we have a lot of patents, so we have more than 700 patents are going on. So we are quite an innovative company at this point. A little bit of the past of Kistler. Kistler produced and sold components at the beginning when Kistler was founded until to the beginning of the year 2002. So during that time, we were a complete component supplier for the industry related to piezo sensors, to torque sensors, and different kind of piezo-based sensors. The year after, we growed in this direction that we offered more and more systems. So for example, with the Maximos device, we offered not only the sensor, we offered also devices which can handle the information from the sensor and show this to the customer what they can do with that. The last years we worked more and more as a solution provider, and for the future we want to go in the more and more in the information provider role. So this is coming next. In the area I am working, it's the production monitoring area, and the production monitoring is basically for in-process monitoring system, and we will provide you with our systems information to improve your quality, early detection of malfunction or broken devices, and at least give you more quality in your production and give more quality to your customer. How does a Maximos work in general? So we have here a production line. We can work with our Maximos device, which you can see here, either in the production or inline process control. We can put that at the end, so an end offline control, or at least offline in a lab or somewhere. The Maximos, in a nutshell, it's a device where all the software and the communication is placed on. This is our measuring module, and we have a display module. And with cables, you can connect displacement sensors, force sensors, or torque sensors directly to the device to operate the system. How does it work? We have a display, And if you have, for example, you would place a bearing in an outlet. So we measure the force with our force sensor, and we measure the displacement with our displacement sensor. If you put this bearing into this fitting, we measure over the displacement, the force, and show it directly on our Maximos system. The curve is evaluated by evaluation objects. I will come to this later on. And as long as the curve is going through these evaluation objects, which are defined before, and following the path which are marked by these angles, everything is okay. So this connection is also okay. If the connection is not working correctly because there is something in this setting, then you can see this directly because the displacement is not going further, but the force is increasing. And so the complete function shows you it's an okay combination. Here you can see a connection at an inhaler, and as far as the process is running, the force is measured, the displacement goes along with the cylinder, and parallel to the fitting, you see the curve on the display, which goes through the EOs, and it's an okay fitting. The Maximos TL general functionalities. So you see the measuring module more in detail. We have on the device a couple of digital IOs. We have connectors for the channel X for the displacement sensor. Different signals are available, potty, plus minus 10 volts, SSI connection, and so on. We have connectors for channel Y. This means for the force measuring sensor. Here we have also different connectors. We have a connector for the display module, power supply, pretty common, and USB connector. We have two USB ports to put a USB stick or a barcode reader in there. We have two Ethernet TCP/IP ports, and we have two field bus ports for Ethernet-based communication, and at least a still available Profibus DP connector and also a piezo connector for our piezo sensors. At least you have all connectors on one device, so one device fits all at least. The monitoring system, the Maximos device, is displayed in different levels. So you see, as long as you see a blue screen, which is marked here blue, you are in the process view. Here you see the actual process measured line. You see the active EOs, and you can switch between different screens, which I come later on this. We have a setup area. This is marked yellow or orange, as you like. Here you can do the setups for the device at least, and we have a service page. I come to this also later. Here we are in this yellow-orange setup level. Here you can set all functionalities like language, access protection. I come to this also later. But the main important things are the settings for the channel X for the displacement and for the channel Y for the force sensors or for the torque sensors. Here you can set up the cycle control, when to start, when to stop. You can do all the settings for the field bus. You can do the settings for the digital IOs. Data export, I come to this also later. And also network communication and so on. So here you do the settings for the device in general. Also on this page, or by the settings, you can choose a huge bunch of evaluation objects. Evaluation objects during this time, they are called EOs. So for example, if you set an EO, which is called here in German, it's Hüllkurve. In English, it's called envelope. So this envelope, you can place this EO, and the envelope goes around your curve and follows your curve. And as long your curve is within the defined envelope, everything is okay. And if the curve turns outside of the envelope, it's not okay. You can place in a measuring program, this is inside the Maximos. You can define in this measuring program 20 EOs, and all these EOs you can handle a certain curve through that. We can place up to 128 measuring programs in our Maximos system, and each measuring program defines one curve, so one production step in your production. In the service monitor, you can get some system information, which hardware is used, which software is on that. The sensor status, you can get some information about the field bus information. You can also do a firmware update and at least reset to the device, do some Tara and test the digital outputs here. As I mentioned, evaluation objects here, for an example, the Unibox. The Unibox is the most common evaluation object in the Maximos device. You can place it wherever you want. You can define where the curve goes in. This you can define during the setups. And as I mentioned, as long as the curve goes the defined path through the EOs, everything is okay. And if it not goes through, then it's marked as not okay. In this case, the complete measuring is marked as not okay. Also, if only one EO in your curve is not okay, the other one is still green because we run through this path as defined. Here you see the possibility to show your process. If I say the whole measuring program is okay, then I define it with this overall overview. Here you can see which measuring was okay, the green one, and which was not okay. And beyond this overall measuring, you can get the information for each EO, which measuring curve passed through the EO and which not. So here you can clearly see that the EO3 has a lot of problems during this process. Now you can double check either your process is running in relation to the parameters for the EO3 not correct, or you have to adapt or adjust your EO3 that your overall quality is going better. The next thing I want to show you is the process value table. In this process value table, you can define in the Maximos system values which you want to show during the system, and can transfer this information to outside systems, to a server or wherever. So here you can create your own setup about parameters which are very important for you, and you want to see these parameters on another display or on another place where you want to store this information. Another point with what the Maximos TL in general can do is a sequence functionality, a sequence, we call it sequence mode. This sequence mode works like an easy PLC functionality. So you can here enter a small program which are related to your inputs and outputs, and you can control the function of the Maximos by these digital IOs, or you can give the operator some messages related to your process. For example, a force is exceeded, or a digital input occurred, and the worker has to change something, and so on. Or you can also give him the actual measuring values back via this sequence element. So takeaways out of this general functionalities. The Maximos system is an XY monitoring system. So we have on the X we have the displacement or the time, and on the Y direction we have the force or the torque, which we can measure. The Maximos device is usable in and or offline to improve your quality in your production. And the evaluation can be easily parameterized by evaluation objects, as I mentioned. And also the device is very easily connectable by standard plugs because all devices, all connectors are on the device, so at least one fits all. Now we come to the point FDA and MDR related functions in the Maximos TL-ML. So the TL was developed and improved to reach the ML functionality by adding user management. So we can add to the Maximos TL-ML users. These users can be disabled or set in by an administrator. And these users are locked out by a defined time, which can everything adjust the administrator there. So you need each user needs a password. This password expires and so on. All the persons are informed that their password expires. If you put in the password 3 times in a different way, you are also locked and so on. So the standard operations for user management, as you know, from different devices all around the world. As mentioned, the administrator can lock and unlock a user as well, not only the password expiration, but also if an operator is not working anymore or not anymore allowed to work on this device, the administrator can lock this user as well. For each person or for each user, you can create a user group, and within this user group, you can define different possibilities what the user can do within this user group. For example, switch on or switch off ports in the device, do EO settings or only evaluation. So different possibilities are available to the user groups, and this can be defined by the administrator and defined afterwards to a certain user, so that the user can only do what the administrator wants the user to do. Another thing we added to the Maximos TL-ML is the functionality of an audit trail. In this audit trail, we document who was operating the Maximos TL, who did the changes, when, and we also defined the old value, the new value. So the user switched from the old value to the new value. And with the last parameters, with this line, you can find this parameter on the GUI of the Maximos. So that if you need, for example, to take care who did one when, you can follow also the GUI where this changes was done on the graphical user interface on the Maximos TL-ML. We also implemented in the Maximos TL-ML the possibility that you can take the audit trail via an USB stick out of the device. But not only via an USB stick, you can also transfer the information of the audit trail via the field bus and send this information to a server. So you activate the audit trail by the field bus and send the information to the connected server for that. We also implemented in the Maximos TL/ML the functionality of security. So here you can switch off or on ports of the device so that you can close the Maximos TL or secure the Maximos TL/ML as much as possible. You can activate, deactivate the USB port. You can activate, deactivate the FTP data export, and so on and so on. And this is possible either by a user who has the rights to change something, which are given by the administrator or by the administrator himself. We also have in the TL/ML the functionality of a printer. So if this functionality is activated in the TL/ML, you can just print out your actual report of this process you measured with a measuring program or with the Maximos TL/ML itself, and then you get the result directly on paper. This is an example how such a report looks like. You see the curve on that, and you see all the measuring results which are on there. And this report you can either print out directly, as mentioned before. You can send this to a server and place it there as a PDF, or you can send also these reports to a server as an XML file or as an CSV file. Additional for the TL/ML, we have available installation qualification documentation and operation qualification documentation. So this documentation, this IQ/OQ documents, helps you to set up the device correctly according to the FDA and MDR regulations and operate the device according to these regulations. As takeaways of this session, as mentioned, an integrated user management and audit trail, at least who changed what when. We have also in the extended security function. So you as a user or as administrator, you are able to make the device as secure as you want. And support during installation and commissioning, as I mentioned, the documentation like IQ/OQs. Here you can see the interfaces we have for our Maximos TL devices. So we have the OPC/UA communication. This is also integrated there. We have Profinet, EtherCAT, Ethernet IP, so all Ethernet-based industrial field bus systems are in there. And still, the Profibus communication is in there. We have for the displacement sensors, SSI, TTL, plus minus 10 volts. For the communication to quality systems, we have integrated protocols like QDAS, QDA9, IPM, and so on. The main amount of customers from us are using CSV files and XML files for their communication or for their data storage of the measured processes. These files are put on a server, either directly via the Ethernet communication, or some customers uses also the USB stick to transfer the process values to their storage board. Takeaways from this, a wide range of industrial interfaces directly on board, a wide range of data exchange standard formats, and the device is easily adjustable because all functionalities are available on one device. So as I mentioned during the whole presentation up to now, we have one device with all connections, with all EOs on board, with all functionalities available. So also for spare parts, you can just exchange the device if you have a backup from the old device. put the backup on the new device, and the system runs as before. Now I come to the service. We are offering a wide range of services to you. So not only for application training, also for installation and operation. We also offer calibration functionality to you and also an calibration service to you. This can we do either in our Kistler calibration laboratory or directly on site, and at least also inside. That means we can also do in situ calibration directly on your plant. So in overall view, our services, we can offer you a huge variety of trainings, not only trainings for the Maximos, also for our type of sensors, for installation of our sensors. We can also do this remote, as we do actually now. We can support you during installation and commissioning. We have also reactive maintenance. Unfortunately, sometimes we needed the reactive maintenance. We have a hotline. We have express material, and we have emergency service on-site and in-house as you want and as you need. So that's what we have to discuss. And as I mentioned, preventive maintenance, calibration on-site, that your system is working correctly to the regulations. And yeah, at least further training. So if you need further training, please double check on our website. So if there is some training available, for sure there will be next trainings for Maximos TL also available, or for the Maximos group. There are also trainings available for torque sensors and for force sensors. Do not hesitate to contact either me or contact our webpage for further information. Out of a nutshell, the Maximos TL-ML is created to fulfill the FDA and MDR medical device regulations. In the TL-ML, we have also a low-range measuring possibility, so we can measure low forces and torques there. As I mentioned, we have in the TL-ML the possibility about audit trail, who changed what when, direct communication with the printer, the user management, so that you exactly know who was changing some parameters on the device. And we have a IoT proof with integrated OPC UA for the future, for the communication with the upper layer system. So I'm at the end of the presentation, and thanks for that. But before I come to the end, what I will do now, I will double check the Q&A session. For that, I will stop the presentation. I will go a little bit through the to the questionnaires and double check for that. If I'm not able to cover all the questions I get, as I mentioned at the beginning, I will take care of all these questions after the session and come individual to the person and give this information. And I will collect all the questions, put it in the presentation, and then I will spread it out to every participant of this presentation. So the first question, the first question I saw, it's what is the price of a Maximos TL-ML system? For sure, this is very important for all of you, I'm guessing. But at least it depends on the configuration of the whole system. So it depends, it's a monitor do you need cabling, which type of sensor, and so on and so on. I would suggest I'll take this question with me, come to the correct sales representative, and he will contact you and give you the right advice for a pricing for your request and for your system. Okay, a little bit browsing for that. How can I connect the Maximos TL-ML to an HMI? To connect a Maximos device to an HMI, there are several possibilities. Firstly, you can connect the device via VNC, virtual network computing, and operate the device in this way remotely. Secondly, you can connect the device directly via an PLC to an HMI, because every parameter of the TL-ML is available by the field bus, and so you can control the device completely with the PLC and display the control out of your PLC on your HMI. Okay, let's double check the next one. Can I set or reset passwords from external on the Maximos TL-ML? Yes and no. The only way to operate the Maximos device from external is either via VNC or via Fieldbus, as I mentioned before. VNC is just a remote connection and you can set the password directly on the device. The other way is to operate the Maximos via the Fieldbus. Here, it is only possible to operate the device via user groups, as I mentioned before, but not dedicated or to the specified user. The reason for that is that transfer passwords via the Fieldbus are not sure regarding IT security regulations. Okay, next one. What is the minimum cycle time the Maximos TL-ML can handle? Okay, this is a very general question. This is mainly related to a lot of parameters, which, for example, depend on the settings of the Maximos itself. That means how many EOs are used, how many history curves are stored, what kind of network is available for storing the result, and so on. To give you a rough idea of what we can do with our Maximos device, we can handle cycle times of approximately 180 milliseconds, including measuring force and displacement, to specified evaluations. Within this 180 milliseconds, we can generate the documentation file and transfer it to an external server. Another question is the Maximos TL-ML available with the FDA MDR certificate? Clear no. We do not have a certificate like this. The Maximos TL-ML was developed based on the FDA MDR regulations. When operating the Maximos, you do no programming on the device, but only a configuration of the EOs. As I mentioned before, you can place the EOs wherever you want and however you like. Because of this fact, no changes are made in the internal software itself. So this software is thousands times proved, and the basic software itself, it's proved. At least there is no sticker on the Maximos TL-ML like a certificate in which indicates FDA inside or something like this. Another question is there a specific usage of the OPCOA communication? Yes, we have a specific use of the OPCOA communication. We implemented an event-based communication. So this is to avoid misfunction regarding the consistency of data. So with this, you can pull for information when you want, and the device gives you the information that there's something available, and then you can pull for this information. With this event-based function, we can guarantee the consistency of data. Another question I'm running through. Is the Maximos TLML usable for interactive data monitoring within a production line? No, the Maximos device is designed for XY monitoring, as I mentioned before, of a single process. That has been defined during commissioning. Nevertheless, there is a basic functionality for a sort of interactive monitoring available. For example, when an EO is used together with an online evaluation, that means if the EO result is not okay, a digital output can be set online in a kind of a real time, and with this output, further actions can be initiated outside the Maximos. This can be the case, for example, when a maximum force is overrun and the force actuator needs to be switched off in order to avoid damage to the machine. So the next question, is the raw data available outside the Maximos for further investigations, for example, of the force displacement curve? Yes, the curve itself of the measured data is available as XML or CSV file. These files also include the information on the settings like EOs of the Maximos. So, and you can just search or browse through these XML or CSV files and search for the data for the curve itself. Okay, how do you ensure that no data is lost when transferring data to a server? Normally, we send the next data package only after getting the confirmation from the server that the data was received. Unless we receive this information, we store the information on our device, and this storage is supervised by two adjustable alerts. One alert is for different level, and the second one is for at least it's pretty close that the storage is now full. So you can adjust these two alerts and optimize your system and see what's going on. Okay, so I see there are a lot of questions coming in. Furthermore, they are running pretty far. What I would suggest now, I would collect all this information and come back to each person. Maybe there is something collected I can put together, and then I will inform you with the presentation and with the recorded session we made actually, and send it to you. So at this point, I would like to say thank you for participating in this presentation. And I'm looking forward to be in contact with you. Stay healthy and see you soon, and bye-bye.